Hi, my name is Lily and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be wrapping up most of the books that I read in March. So I read 16 books in March, including one DNF. So I'm not going to talk to you about all of them individually because otherwise we'll be here all day, but I am going to try and group some together, and there's a couple I'm just going to skip over because I don't want to talk about them. So of course, up first is the Wayward Children series. If you watched my vlogs from early in the month, you will know I absolutely adored the Wayward Children series. I kind of read it on a whim because I wanted a really quick audiobook to get into. Most of the audiobooks are only about 4 hours long, and if you listen to them on 2x speed like I do sometimes, that means it's only 2 hours long, and that is great. I got through them so fast. I was listening to them at work while I was doing some like mindless tasks, which is why I got through them so quickly. I love them all. I think most of them got 4 or 5 stars. My least favourite one was Across the Green Grass Fields, and I think my favourite one is Down Among the Sticks and Bones. So yeah, I'm loving them. I'm looking forward to more coming out. I'm really sad they only come out once a year because I need more content, please. But yeah, I'm loving them, and I'm really hoping we get to see Cade's story really soon. The Wayward Children series is about children who find these doors to other worlds, and these are meant to kind of be their perfect worlds. And basically, eventually these children have been booted back out of their worlds for whatever reason. Some of them left voluntarily and some of them were forcibly removed. They all end up at this school. There's 2 schools you can kind of be sent to, and the one that we are at is the one where the children really like their experience and they want to go back. So most of them are dreaming and hoping that one day their doors will open and they can go back to their perfect worlds, and some of them are just trying to adjust, knowing that they will never be able to go back. And these perfect worlds are like fantasy worlds. They can be extremely logical or extremely nonsensical, and they can be very dark or very light, and very moral or very immoral. So there's real extremes of these worlds, and you do get to visit a few of the different extremes throughout the series. Next, I read This Lie Will Kill You by Chelsea Pitcher. This was mostly an audiobook read, but I did have a physical copy at the time. However, it's now in my massive unhaul pile, which I didn't want to dig it out of, so I won't be holding it up. And as it's on my unhaul pile, you can probably tell I didn't love this book. So I think I gave this one 2 or 3 stars. Didn't think it was very good. I thought the first half was very intriguing, but it kind of loses its pace and its sense as you get through to the end of the book. So This Lie Will Kill You is about a party happened, I think it's a year ago, and a young man died in a car accident, and this group of teenagers who were somehow linked or involved with this person are all sent these letters to say that they've been picked to go and take part in this murder mystery evening where if they win they get a scholarship for college. So they all show up, and it turns out that it's not quite what it seems, and this person seems to have been stalking them and has set up this kind of murder house, I guess, and it sounds really amazing. It really does, and it starts off quite strong, but yeah, it just loses its momentum as you go on, and I wouldn't really recommend it, but I think this author might be able to improve on this in the future, so I'm not completely ruling her out yet. Next, I read Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. This one was another audiobook on Scribd, and it's a new adult/adult romance, and it's very similar in themes to Red, White and Royal Blue. It's basically an enemies to lovers fake dating romance. They're not really enemies, they just don't like mesh straight away, and basically the main character is the son of a disgraced rock star, and he works for this charity, and he keeps having these drunken nights out where things go wrong, and he's kind of told that if he doesn't improve how he looks in the media, he's going to lose his job. So he comes up with this idea to get a fake boyfriend to improve his look to the press, and that's what he does, and obviously sparks start to fly as he and this fake boyfriend get to know each other. It's really sweet and funny. Not quite to the level of Red, White and Royal Blue, but if you did like that book, this one is one to check out. I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and it was a really great audiobook to listen to. Next is another romance, because I've definitely been on a romance kick lately, and that is Act Your Age Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a adult romance, and it's just so good. It is an own voices autistic book with 2 autistic characters, so the love interest and the main character are both autistic, and they're amazing. They're very different to each other and I just love it so much. This one is about Eve Brown. She is a bit of a chaotic person, hasn't really got her life together, and her parents tell her they're cutting her off until she figures her life out. She drives off in a huff, and when she does, she comes across this B&B and decides to just walk into the interviews happening and have a go. She actually manages to impress them, but by the time they realise they want to hire her, she's disappeared off into her car. So when they go to find her, she doesn't see them because of the rain and accidentally runs over the owner of the B&B. She decides to stay and help out because it is kind of her fault that he's incapacitated. So this is so funny, so enjoyable. You can definitely read this independently of the other 2 books in the Brown Sisters series because I haven't read them yet, and I love this and it didn't taint my experience at all. And I think it's amazing. I think it's so funny. I give it 5 stars. I could give it more stars if I was allowed. It's just 10 out of 10, absolutely adored it. Next, I read I Love You So Muchy by Sarah Kuhn. This is about a Japanese-American girl who is falling out of her family because she secretly doesn't want to pursue fine arts, even though it's what she's always told her parents she would, and that's what her mother does. When her and her mother have a falling out because her mum discovers that she's dropped some fine art classes, she decides to take up her estranged grandparents' offer of a visit to Japan. So she goes to Japan, and there she bumps into this guy who's dressed up as a giant mochi, and they start to have this budding romance as he shows her around Japan. And it is just really sweet, really cute, and I did enjoy it. I think I only gave it 3 or 4 stars because I thought it was kind of a pretty basic romance. I wanted more, but what I did really love was the imagery. You get this really vivid description of Japan, of the places that she visits, and I loved the way that everything she sees, she kind of related it back to clothing and clothing designs, and that was lovely. It was a really different take on describing places, and that really drew me in. I loved that. I just thought the plot was a little bit weak, but I would still highly recommend it if you love a good YA romance. Next, I tried to read Don't Date Rosa Santos, but I didn't really enjoy it and I didn't get very far into it, so I decided to DNF, and I'm not really going to talk about it anymore because I don't feel like I have read enough to be able to tell people whether or not they should read it. Next, I read Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas. This is the first book in the new Crescent City series by Sarah J Maas, which is her first foray into adult fantasy. I thought this book was okay. If you watch my reading vlog, you'll know why, and I'll try and go into it a little bit here, but I'm not going to go into too much depth. But basically, I felt like it was kind of a carbon copy of her previous books. The female and male interactions were pretty much identical. Her female character was pretty much identical to Feyre and Aelin, and it just felt very much like she'd recycled the same story from the last 2 series into a new adult one. And I wanted to enjoy it, I did, but I'm not a big mystery fan, so that already was taking things away from me, and then when I realised it's just a carbon copy, I wasn't into it. But I still got 3 stars because I thought the world building was really good, and I really thought the world was interesting and different, because you don't really see a lot of these kind of fantasy characters in an urban fantasy, so that really drew me in. I'm definitely going to read more books in this series to see if it's going to grip me a bit more. Next, I read Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is a cozy mystery, and it was my work's book club pick, which is why I read it. The idea behind this is there's a group of elderly people at this retirement village who come together every Thursday to look over cold cases and old murder cases and go over them, see if they can figure anything out. But then the guy who built their retirement village gets murdered, and they decide to try and investigate what happened. And it's a very intriguing book. It's very different. It's told from lots of different perspectives. Most of the time it's third person, unless it's Joyce, I think her name is, writing in her diary, and I thought the humour was really there. It's a really good British old people humour, so I really appreciated that. But for me, I just found it a bit slow paced, which is why I think in the end it got 3 stars from me. Next, I read Mesa. This was gifted to me by Helen from Helen's Bookhaven, so thank you, Helen. I couldn't figure out where I'd put this book, so that's why I'm not holding it up. But this is a Muslim retelling of Rapunzel, Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, all kind of rolled into one, mostly told from the perspective of Rapunzel, who is the first story we see, and I did enjoy it. And I think I gave it 3 stars, and I think it's a good read, and I definitely would give it to children. I wouldn't question it. I would absolutely give it to people and recommend it. But for me, I felt like it was a pretty basic retelling of the stories. It didn't feel like it gave anything to it except for changing the names. I felt like Muslim cultures could have been embedded more into the stories than they actually were. So that was my only complaint, but I still think it's a good book and I would recommend it. And yeah, if you're interested to still read it, I think it's still good. Next, I read what might have been my favourite book of the month, and that was Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This is about an autistic woman who has been working in the same convenience store since the day it opened when she was 18 years old, and it's now 18 years later. She absolutely loves the routine, she loves the predictability, and she's kind of built her life around working at the convenience store. But people are constantly questioning her about why she hasn't found a proper job or why she's not in a relationship. And this book kind of explores those ideas of what it's like to live as a woman in this kind of role and what her expectations are. And I thought it was just wonderful. It's definitely an autistic character, and that's what I really enjoyed because I related so much to some of the way that she processes and thinks about things. I thought it was a really great exploration of that. I kind of wish it was said on paper, because a lot of the UK marketing, at least, is all about how quirky and funny it is. But I don't think it is. She's not quirky and funny, she's just autistic, and I think if you're laughing at some of the things she's saying, it's not meant to be funny. That is just how autistic people think. So in some ways you're kind of laughing at autistic people. But I still think if you can go into it with that in mind, it's a really, really good read, and it's super short, so definitely give it a go. I loved it so, so much. Next, I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is about Pip, who is doing an EPQ, which is kind of like a really long essay project style thing in the UK that you can do when you're towards the end of secondary school. And for her project, she decides to investigate the disappearance of Andy Bell, who was a girl at her secondary school 5 years earlier, and it's believed that she was killed by her boyfriend Sal, who then committed suicide. But Pip doesn't think that that is what happened and decides to investigate it a bit more. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed this book. It's kind of a cozy mystery with a little bit of a thriller element to it, and I really, really loved that. It's really gripping, the chapters are really short, just how they should be in a cozy mystery or a thriller, and yeah, I just couldn't stop turning the page, couldn't stop reading. I loved it. I think I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads, but in my head it's more of like a 4.5. My only complaint was I wasn't 100% satisfied with the ending and how things resolved, and obviously I'm not going to spoil it, but yeah, I wasn't 100% satisfied with how it ended, but I thought the rest of it was just incredible. I couldn't stop reading, and I'm already reading the second book, so yeah, I think it's very, very good, and if you are intrigued, definitely read it, because this is one of those ones where even if you don't like mysteries that much, it's a good read. And the final book I'm going to talk to you about is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This was a reread so that I could move on to reading Ready Player Two. I'm trying to allow myself to reread more this year because I tend to put that off, and I don't really know why anymore. I felt like I was wasting reading time by rereading books I've already read, but that's not how it works. If you're reading, that's fine. So yeah, I decided to reread this mostly via audiobook so that I could then move on to reading Ready Player 2, because I've been really excited for that one since it was announced. Of course, I gave this 5 stars again. If you didn't know, Ready Player One is about a pre-apocalyptic future. Most of humanity spends their days living in the Oasis, which is a virtual reality game. A lot of things now exist there, like businesses and work and shops, so lots of people actually work in the Oasis as well. A few years before the book starts, it's revealed that James Halliday, the creator of the Oasis, has died, and that he has left an Easter egg in the game. Whoever can find the Easter egg first inherits his entire wealth and also his controlling stake in the company that runs the Oasis. To find the Easter egg, they have to find 3 keys and 3 gates. So starts a massive worldwide competition to try and find the Easter egg. This follows Wade Watts, also known as Parzival, on his journey to try and find the egg. I have loved this book since I first read it. I reread it quite a few times now because the audiobook is really good. It's read by Will Wheaton. And yeah, it's so good, so entertaining, so funny, and I just can't stop. I get so drawn into it. Even though I know how it ends now, by heart, I get so sucked in. So I just can't recommend this highly enough. I think it's really clever. If you love the kind of 80s culture, which is what this is all based around, then it's definitely worth the read. So, I think I had a pretty good reading month. I had a bit of a bad patch in the middle where I read a couple of not so great books, but I think the beginning and the end were really strong. I read some amazing books and I got to reread Ready Player One, which has made me super happy. Going into April, I've started reading sequels from some of the books I read in March, which is really great. I'm really enjoying trying to finish series or trying to keep up with series as they're coming out, and that's been feeling really great. I think that means I'm going to be rereading a lot more this year so that I can get series finished, and I'm honestly not complaining. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you read in March. Maybe tell me your best book and your worst book. Whatever you want to share, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to see more content from me. All of my social media links are down in the description below. If you want to leave me a comment to let me know you are here, leave me a little flower emoji in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!